Thank you to everyone joining us today from across the country and around the world. I'm Kim Todd, Virtual Programs Manager here at Conscious Capitalism, Inc. On behalf of the entire CCI team, we appreciate you taking the time to learn and grow in community with us. Today, we are excited for a conversation with Jacqueline Corbelli and Joanna Hall about how they are creating and using technology to bring people together and achieve sustainable development goals. As many of you know, conscious capitalism is a philosophy that emphasizes the human nature of business, as well as a movement of business leaders from around the world working to change the practice and perception of capitalism as a means to elevate humanity. Conscious Capitalism, Inc. is a nonprofit organization dedicated to catalyzing that movement by creating learning opportunities like today's session and building systems of support for practicing conscious capitalists through our Senior Leader Network membership and engagement with our local chapters. Several times a month, we offer virtual gatherings as a way for the community to see how this philosophy takes shape in the leadership journeys and business practices of those in our network. Today's gathering will run for about 45 minutes. We'll be in conversation with Jackie and Joanna for about 25 minutes, and then we'll transition to audience questions during the last 10 to 15 minutes of our session. Please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to get to as many of your questions as we can during our time together. If you have any technical questions or issues, please email us at info@consciouscapitalism.org. Now, I'm honored to welcome Jacqueline Corbelli and Joanna Hall. Jacqueline is the CEO and founder of Brightline, a New York-based technology software company that is a cornerstone of advanced TV advertising and interactive content for all of America's leading broadcasters, including NBCU, ABC Disney, CBS, and Fox, among others. She is also the founder of the U.S. Coalition on Sustainability and creator of sustainability accelerator SustainChain, which we will hear more about shortly. And she is a member of the board of the Sustainable Development Goals Center for Africa, a member of the Leadership Council of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Joanna is the co-founder of Brightline and a past global senior vice president of partnerships at Originate, a world-class designer of custom software products that solve complex problems with a focus on time to market, scalability, and business impact. She currently is the executive director of the U.S. Coalition on Sustainability, where she leads product strategy, design, and development for SustainChain, the public utility platform developed in partnership with the United Nations to help accelerate humanity's progress on the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. We're so excited to have you both here with us today. And as we know, we're here to talk about sustainability and how your organization and new platform is helping companies and people connect and meet the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But I first want to begin by having you share a little bit more about yourselves. You both have a tech and software background. I want to know a little bit more about what prompted you to kind of shift gears and begin your focus on sustainability. Jacqueline, if you want to start.
Oh, I'd be happy to. But first, thank you so much for having us. It is so exciting to be speaking to a group whose focus is so central to what we do and why we exist. The reason that Joanna and I are here today is because we both recognize the need to be moving in a different way collectively in order for us to reach this, the overall the future that we need to get to together in terms of social and economic justice. And so I would say, the two reasons that are driving me to be here doing this today is the urgency. And the second one really has to do with opportunity. I was given an opportunity by folks that I have been working with for about 15 years now in an economic development context with Africa and so on, and the relationships built over that time frame and the sort of synchronicity of thinking and desire have really come together to shift Totally, but to include this as one of my focuses, I do still run my company, Brightline, but I view this as sort of a source of real energy that feeds my soul and my intellect, and I think just makes me a better me. So with that, I'll give it to you, Joe.
Thank you, and I echo what Jackie says. Thank you so much for having us. This is a pleasure. So I also was given an opportunity. Actually, it's sort of a hand-me-down. Jackie gave me an opportunity. About 3 years ago, I joined the coalition. Before that, I had been running a software innovation studio, Brightline, and was sort of going through my own maybe existential crisis, right? Moment of sort of, wow, we need to really start, moving things forward. And I had been learning a tremendous amount about, leveraging the power of technology through, all of the modern tooling, right? Human-centered design, agile methodologies, right? Understanding, user behavior. But frankly, not employing tech, right, and software solutions in the ways that are going to help accelerate some of the really, frightening problems in the world today. And I hooked back up with Jackie. We were having a cocktail, and I was saying, I'm at this moment in my life and my career where I feel like I have this energy to put towards something more meaningful. And she was like, Joe, I think I have the right opportunity for you. So we have been on this incredible journey ever since. So that's how I came to this particular moment in time.
Well, thanks for sharing. It's so inspiring and exciting to see women leading the way and, moving forward. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about the U.S. Coalition on Sustainability and SustainChain. How did it form? What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? Can you share with the attendees a little bit more about the work you're doing?
I'd be happy to. And I will start by just saying that I think we all can agree that we need to move much, much faster and to go much, much farther and in a concerted way that the world has never seen. And we need to do it today, right now, in order to hope that we have enough time to make enough of a difference. So that's at the core of the mission of the U.S. Coalition on Sustainability. And then it comes down to, where do we source hope, right? How can we feel that there is still a path to enough change that's big enough, right? That addresses the sort of interrelationships and interconnected nature of the world and how we live, and the big nettlesome problems that are causing all the issues that that we experience today. And so, what drives us, and Joanna sort of touched on it, is the sort of deeply held thought that it really needs to come from that place philosophically, but then be blended with the best that digital technology and technology in general can bring to us, as well as, and one of those things being machine learning. If we can put all those things together, we might be able to, we fuse them all, we might just have the ability to not just understand each other better, not just, be able to sort of find each other in some way, but to actually unify and be guided by machine learning intelligence in ways that give us the kind of hope we need that we'll get there. So, that it is such an active environment, but fragmented and disconnected world and sustainability, it lacks tools and automation and a way to work together smartly. So at the heart of what we've built with SustainChain, if we've got it right, we'll solve a lot of that. And then we'll use machine learning that helps us invest and build and work with more intelligence. Right. So SustainChain is a reflection of what we're setting out to do, how we think it has to happen. And then we've gone ahead and combined the two, digital and ML, and we made it free. And we invited organizations that are really serious about making the difference that they talk about. And we try and make it as seamless and easy and helpful to them as we can to work holistically and in concert to rebuild supply chains, which the sort of is at the very sort of foundation of being able to deliver the kind of impact that private sector needs to have in this equation. So, Jo, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just to build on that, right? So at its core, think of SustainChain. I mean, first of all, as Jackie mentioned, it is a free public utility platform, right? So, everyone, for the most part, I think, right, if you're awake these days, right, you're focused on sort of either your own sustainability initiatives, right, across your organization, or you're reading the news, right, and you're recognizing that, right, we need to do something, and it's becoming more and more urgent. Yet, if you think about it, there is no sort of trusted, right, sort of platform to go to, right, to learn more, to find partners, to access solutions, right? You're going to industry events or you're reading, industry articles. Most of these things tend to be quite siloed, right? And to Jackie's point, right, fragmented. So think of SustainChain as a sort of free digital sort of platform, right, where any organization, right, can come, they can join, and you can find solutions to help you achieve your goals. You can find project teams, right, that you can join up with. You can find networks of other like-minded individuals and organizations working on common objectives. And then you can also launch your own calls to action, launch your own initiatives, and invite and encourage other members of the chain to join forces with you. It really is an enabling platform for sort of SDG 17, which is all about partnerships and collaboration across the ecosystem.
That's fantastic. And the fact that anyone can join and contribute and learn. Can you share a little bit more about some of the initiatives that you've been or that the community has been working on, and a couple success stories of what has happened when you've brought people together through SustainChain?
I would love to do that. Want me to start, Joanna?
Sure.
So it has been such a fast and exciting ride so far. So we didn't mention it, but we built this thing during the pandemic. And it was really as we know, just an extraordinary set of circumstances and time in everybody's life. And a lot of things happened to us, right, during that time frame. And one of the things we were able to make happen was to build out our vision. And it was September of last year when we launched it officially at the UN General Assembly. And since then, 1,200 plus organizations have joined SustainChain on the invitation only basis that Joanna touched on. In terms of the initiatives, then, Joanna's going to give you a sense for like the specifics around the initiatives inside SustainChain right now, but I would like to characterize the difference between last year and this year. So last year, as it was in its beta and people were starting to use it, one of the most sort of exciting things that started to happen is people were actually having multi-stakeholder, multidisciplinary conversations, and they were doing it from a place of, regardless of whether you were in ESG or CSR or sustainability or SDGs, or you pick your acronym, pick your part of the company, right? I mean, there's so many different ways we each think about so-called sustainability or economic and social justice, right? But what we saw happening inside SustainChain was that people were coming together based on common challenges, the things that they were prioritizing, that they wanted to actually demonstrate that they had a commitment to. And what we were able to do, in addition to formally launch SustainChain last September, is actually give a window into the various big problems that really, you know, in order to make fundamental change happen, right, we have to get down to the underlying systems that are driving those issues. And what these groups were doing was the first time I had seen it, and I think probably the first time many had seen it, who were based on the reaction that we got from people who were able to come and join us for it, or to watch the recording afterward, was different, you know. And so everything from regenerative agriculture to circular economy, these are big sort of initiatives that were happening right inside SustainChain in 2021 that were these multidisciplinary sort of holistic groups of people that were coming together to talk about, what do we mean when we say regenerative agriculture? Everyone says, you know, who's involved in this has a different idea of it, or ESG for that matter, right? And so what was different is that they were talking about what was at the core, regardless of how you define regenerative agriculture, what's at the core of getting at the supply chain components that are really going to drive whether we get there or not, right? And so we were able to come out of that with a very specific set of observations that were reflective of the whole ecosystem, rather than one organization or just one project or whatever, right? It was like, you know, had the benefit of all these different minds, and all looking for the same thing, which was, how can we do better together? How can we leverage each other, and so on. And so they started to zero in on some really sort of central pieces of, you know, of the mechanics, right, that would have to take place. And right now, and this year, if you're with us, and we hope you will be, we get to make an announcement around a very big action that took place across the community because of that initial work and the way people initially were engaging. So sorry to be talking so much. I'll hand it over to Joanna to talk more about 2022 initiatives and how they're sort of materializing and manifesting differently now.
Yeah, what's exciting right now, and we've just hit this just very exciting moment, obviously, in terms of, to Jackie's point, right? Year one was really sort of about building out, right, the tech and the beta, and then rapidly learning, right, based on what our you know, founding members, you know, really needed from a utility platform. Right now there is incredible uptick and demand for what we call these action alliances. So essentially there are, I'm going to call them ecosystems of change, right? These movements, right, that are occurring across the world that are incredibly exciting. I'm going to name a few that are our partners, and we have a lot more that we're announcing at UNGA, but I don't think I'm allowed to announce them on the record yet. But you know, folks like Design for Freedom, led by Sharon Prince. Design for Freedom is an entire movement of 80+ leading organizations that have come together to eradicate modern slavery in the construction and design industry. And so they have been working together for a few years now. They've, you know, co-created a playbook for the industry to help other organizations better understand, you know, slavery and unfair labor practices in their supply chain, and they're open sourcing it right to the world for everyone to benefit from. They are a beautiful example of how they've convened all these incredible players, right? They're very clear on the opportunity and the need and so forth. What they needed is sort of a technology, a digital table to help accelerate that work, bring it to the world, and connect it to other ecosystems of change. And so they're leveraging SustainChain as their action portal for all of their community and for their members to be sharing, to be co-creating, building the playbook, right, and bringing others into that movement. And that's one example, just one example. And there are so many more that are saying, hey, wait a minute, you know, we can convene, we're doing the work, et cetera, but actually we need a platform. We need a platform, and we don't want to build a platform in isolation. We want it to be connected to the other movements as well, so that when we have a need, right, we can share it. When we, you know, we can amplify our work and open source it to the world, and build on each other's learnings. So Design for Freedom is one incredible example. We've got the Alliance for a Climate Resilient Earth. That's 180 organizations now, all focused on resilience, you know, all multidisciplinary, private sector, national labs, you know, academia, all coming together using SustainChain as that enabling platform, right, to accelerate their work, right, and house that work, and then also amplify it to others. We've got the Ocean Energy Alliance, an entire, another ecosystem that's working on ocean thermal energy, like massive. That's going to take innovation and investment and private sector and so forth, right? They're not a technology company, right? They're plugging in and leveraging SustainChain as their infrastructure. And there are countless more, right, of these sort of ecosystems of change that are now going to be able to leverage SustainChain, not only to accelerate their individual work, but then most importantly, right, for achieving the mission that Jackie laid out, right, is to be connected to the whole.
That's fantastic. And I imagine you could go on and on and on with more stories.
I know. I was like, stop.
Great. And I know that you also recently just put out a report called the Vinci Report. Can you tell us a little bit more about the kind of information that can be found in that report, and how does compiling the data help companies and organizations continue to make progress?
So thank you. Really exciting step to take, the Vinci Report, because I think, as everyone probably listening can relate to the extent that we understand what is happening in industries that we're a part of, where we're trying to make progress, or some place in the supply chain that we're really trying, to address. We just don't have visibility. We know who we know because of the organizations that we're a part of, or the projects that we've been invited into, right? The wonderful networks that are growing. But we have no way of knowing whether similar networks exist elsewhere that I just haven't touched yet, that haven't touched me, that I haven't bumped into, right? And so what the Vinci Report is there to do is to sort of sit back and say, when we work in this way together, we are then able to step back and have a baseline understanding for this community, and as it grows, what it's actually saying. What's the so what? As consultants often say, what's the so what? And in the so what of things, it's about understanding to what extent are industries really sort of forging alliances, to what extent are challenges that should be common across industries, or should be common across social impact investors or innovators and so on. Is it happening? Right. So what Da Vinci allowed us to do is to give this initial snapshot of what is actually being focused on by our community, how it touches different industries, the types of organizations that are involved, the challenges that they're focused on, the type of collective efforts that are taking place across those organizations. In other words, it's a snapshot of the SustainChain community as it grows and evolves. And in the future, as our understanding grows, the data sort of becomes richer, and the machine learning continues to sort of churn. The report becomes insightful, like on where progress is occurring, actual progress across SDGs, if that's what you're looking at, or big supply chain issues in the hard manufacturing sector, right? What's missing, and the potential within the community to fill the gaps, whether it's from other industries with common supply chain components, or whether it's other individuals who really are looking for a way to invest, organizations that are really interested in investing in things like this, but actually don't know where the gap is, that the demand exists, that there are people actually getting traction. So that over time is what Da Vinci is there to do.
Outstanding. Thank you for that. Joanna, anything to add? Great. I am going to also just mention, I think you both are too humble to say this, but SustainChain was an honoree of Fast Company's 2022 World Changing Ideas Award in the AI and data category. So congratulations on that. And just going to pivot a little bit, is might be a large question, but when people think about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, if you're not part of a corporation or an organization that's actively working to help address and meet these goals, it sometimes feels overwhelming, too much to accomplish, not enough time to do it. I would love to know your response to that.
It's well-founded. And it's true. And part of the reason that I gravitated toward this sort of ask that some friends asked of me had to do with, there's a lot of really smart people who know a lot of really important things about the stiff challenges we have, right, as a planet and as people, and they can even be very articulate about what's wrong, but it's often very difficult to translate that into something we can actually operationalize as a business, right? We can be clear on what does that mean for my business and how I can do the best possible to contribute to the solution. The SDGs were an attempt, and by the way, this is not to disparage the SDGs at all. It is a huge step, right? These are globally supported goals, right? Where folks, actually could agree, and that doesn't happen all the time at the UN, but right, as we know, but they could agree that these goals applied to all, and that they should be something that we collectively strive toward. So the significance of the SDGs really lies in the fact that, that we have all coalesced around the importance and need, and therefore priority of these goals. Now, if you don't know the goals, you're not alone. There's 17 of them, which doesn't make it any easier. But in terms of the 17, all of them have a translation back to the things you do know. They have a translation back to what your focus priorities are in CSR, in ESG, in sustainability, right? All of the things we define as socially responsible things that our organization, part of our identity and mission, is going to be about. And so one of the big reasons I was really excited about the ask was to help out in that specific place, which is, you can't define success in getting to a goal unless you have clarity on how the goal should be interpreted from your own perspective. So what we did inside SustainChain is we brought everyone in across, types of organizations, across all industries, to get to these ecosystems that Joanna is talking about. And then we let the system also, by each of organization identifying the challenges that they have, for the system to let you know, by the way, the success you have in addressing the challenges you've prioritized contribute to achieving SDG X, right? So that we can, at the very same time, sort of increase the consciousness around, what does it mean? What do these SDGs really mean? How are they relevant to what I'm doing? How do I know if I'm even contributing, right? We tried to build that right into the system so that we could contribute to that confusion and lack of clarity as well.
Great, thanks for that. Joanna, anything to add there?
I'll just add that it's to Jackie's point, it's a massive product consideration, right? A tremendous amount of effort and thought goes into that precise problem, right? Is understanding that folks that are coming to this platform, right, are coming from their own perspective, their own industry, their own worldview, their own terminology, right? And so it's meeting them where they are, right? And it's more about, well, what problem are you trying to solve, right?
Right.
And let's let the technology and the system, right, surface the most meaningful recommendations and actions for you, right? But then on the back end, right, we're being smart enough from a sort of data, architecture and, data science perspective to then connect all these things to have the holistic picture, right, that Jackie was referring to from a Da Vinci perspective, right? And so if we continue on this path and get this right, it's sort of a bit of the Rosetta Stone, right? Come in, tell us your problem opportunity. Let's support you, right? But in so doing, we're actually creating this sort of collective intelligence, right? That gives us more of a holistic understanding across the SDGs and much more than just that.
Great, thanks for that. And the term ESG has been thrown out quite a bit. I noticed that one of your initiatives on your website is addressing the issues limiting required scale of ESG investing. I know that's kind of a hot topic these days. Can you elaborate just a little bit on what some of the issues or concerns around ESG are right now and how you're working to address some of those issues?
Absolutely. So the sort of clearest way I can give you some sense of how SustainChain is set up to help out and on what you describe where ESG is concerned. It's an extremely fragmented area with lots of definitions. One of the reasons that we designed SustainChain in the way that we did is so we can begin to understand where there is commonality, as I said, in focus and in action, despite potential differences, right? And how the term is used. So one currently underway has to do with the area of focus for many organizations where they're trying to sort of incorporate ESG standards, and that is in the procurement process. And so members inside SustainChain are now helping each other understand the block for progressive and innovative small and medium-sized companies to be included in big company RFP processes, right? So this is a way that SustainChain can zero in on a common priority across different kinds of organizations where ESG is concerned. This one has to do with procurement, and within procurement, there's an initiative that is being tackled around the RFP process. And when you sort of boil it down, when you get to supply chains, rebuilding supply chains, we have to sort of collectively rethink the way the procurement and RFP process actually works, so that what we're trying to accomplish through redesigning them actually gets executed in a way that's consistent. So understanding that connection between, as McKinsey folks say, customer and supplier across the supply chain, right, becomes a way to remake processes in a more organic way that doesn't necessarily get caught up then in each organization's ESG terminology and framework, if that helps.
Great, thanks for that. Joanna, anything to add? And just want to give a shout out to our attendees. If you do have questions for Joanna or Jacqueline, please go ahead and pop those into the Q&A box. You can find that at the bottom of your screen. But I have a couple more here too. In talking with you and learning more about the work that you're doing with SustainChain, it's clear to me that addressing challenges, especially global challenges, it's a community-wide effort, right? It's going to take all of us. For businesses, conscious businesses and community members that are at the starting point or even kind of well into their journey of meeting some of these goals, do you have any tips or advice for them of, either how to get started or how to keep going and not feel overwhelmed?
I know Joanna and I will have the same answer to this question, but so please.
Yeah, I mean, join the chain. That's the first thing. I know we're dropping the sort of the invite link into the chat here. join the chain, and then you'll see both lots of action initiatives that you can join. So if you're really early and you maybe don't have the resources and bandwidth to sort of start, right, your own effort, you don't need to. You can join others that are already in progress. Very simple. You'll click on them, you'll sort of read a little bit more, and then you request to join, and it's going to instantly notify, right, the owner of that particular initiative. You're going to find within the groups tab, you're going to see all sorts of these communities, these alliances, right, that are already formed, that are already on SustainChain, and there's a lot more coming that are entire communities working on, you know, certain change territories. So again, request to join, get involved. That's for those that are, you know, perhaps a little earlier in their journey. For those of you that are already, you know, you have, maybe it's an internal initiative just within your organization, or maybe you're already, you know, collaborating right with a few other partners. Get them on the chain, launch them, launch a call to action so that you know, if at the minimum, you're just amplifying your efforts so that more are aware of what you're doing, right? Baseline. But then ultimately you're encouraging others to join, right? And participate with you so that, again, you can kind of go faster. We have a concierge team of, you know, incredible volunteers and grad students in sustainability and so forth that are also available to help and support. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and we're happy to kind of, you know, hold your hand and, you know, help you create an initiative or launch one, or maybe even just give you curated recommendations on other members of the community based on your particular initiatives. We really do try to be as supportive as possible to help folks get the most of the broader community.
Great, thanks for that. And there was a question that popped up, just confirming that there is currently no cost to joining SustainChain. Is that correct?
You asking that question is exactly why there's no cost to joining. Is we had to make SustainChain as frictionless as possible, and that's correct. That's correct. What we do ask, or what you'll see in SustainChain is that where you're able to make a contribution, it's really important that we do. Because this is a neutral platform. It doesn't have big organizational money behind it. This is just people who care coming together to contribute to what we all know needs to happen. And we really do collectively need to all sort of pitch in to make sure that the technology and machine learning continues to evolve and get smarter and smarter over time.
And I'll just add, because perhaps we didn't make it clear in the beginning, but to Jackie's point, you know, there are folks contributing in terms of a charitable donation. We are a nonprofit. So the U.S. Coalition on Sustainability is a 501c3, right? Founded in partnership with the UN, as we mentioned. And frankly, we've gotten as far as we have through incredible partnerships with folks like ThoughtWorks, they're our technology partner, massive team building out this incredibly modern, sophisticated tech. So we're a nonprofit, neutral, agnostic, right? Truly through partnerships, looking to sort of accelerate the whole.
Wonderful. And there's another question here from Patricia. Can you please discuss how capital fits into the chain, debt, equity, NGO based, in order to get capital flowing while mitigating risk to get these efforts to scale?
That's another excellent question. Joe, do you want to try and go at that one, or would you like me to? I think you can.
You start.
Okay. Right. So when we talk about types of organizations that are in SustainChain and ecosystems, it comes down to how does change actually happen if it's going to be lasting, right? And we all know that it has to be multidisciplinary, and we all know that it has to be holistic, but what do we mean? Well, we took a specific route with respect to all of that. In terms of the 1,200 plus organizations that are in SustainChain, they're almost equally distributed across organization types. They include social impact investors, NGOs, think tanks, public-private partnerships, then brands, supply chain component owners, innovators, and entrepreneurs. So if you, no matter where you sit across that entire sort of ecosystem, if you will, macro ecosystem, SustainChain is there and built to help. So getting to lowering the risk. Well, you didn't ask about lowering risk, but given that obviously the evaluation of risk and risk assessment is key to folks who invest or give, right, to these efforts. SustainChain is there for each user to understand who else is in there, who else is involved in the things that are their priority. So everyone's profile in onboarding is almost exactly the same, so that as an impact investor, I can see across the ecosystem, the NGOs, the think tanks, the brands, the supply chain owners, the entrepreneurs who have the same focus that I do. And I can create a call to action to say, parameters, investment parameters are X, sector is Y, looking for Z. And you can put it out to the community and you can get a response from the community. Or you can invite individual members that look like they align with you, and it's all automated and it's all curated. So you'll know who they are. And you can reach out to them, and you can bring your own group together and start to work on ways to evolve, strengthen evaluative criteria, and actually specific criteria like demand. How can we get better at understanding the demand for something like ocean thermal energy, which currently we only hear about in the Pacific Island states, but where ocean hydro energy, right, is being discussed. And so therefore we know there's potential demand for it, right? That's what happens when investors come into the community. They are become conscious and aware of things that they weren't before, and they can actually reach out and or form partnerships with the folks who can take them further, faster in their own considerations. I don't know if I answered the entire question though.
I think so. That was great. We are coming close to time, but there is another question here, maybe a kind of a quick answer, although it might not be easily answered. Someone is asking if you can share another example of a SustainChain project that is currently in progress, and what does that look like? And maybe one that you're super excited about and super excited to see where it's going. Is there one?
Yeah. I can speak to the alternative energy action path that we're watching some really exciting work happen. Last year, alternative energy was one of the action tracks that we were able to, give that window into at UN General Assembly last year. And the group that came together, wind and hydro and ocean thermal and so on, right? They came together to understand, what the biggest obstacles were from a whole variety of facets, right? Where does the adequate capital come in? What is needed at various stages of development and rollout where that's concerned? Where does government policy, limit? Where does our thorough understanding, right, of results today, examples of wins and sort of failures exist and so on. Where it led was, a list of things that they could observe across, no matter what they were focused on, where alternative energy was concerned. Everyone started to migrate, among other things, to something at the very top of the list, which was nowhere does a global mapping of energy exist that can tell us at the very same time what type of energy does each country, each region, location, and so on rely on now? What are current policy efforts focused on, right? And where, therefore, are there opportunities to, and the third one is, what does the geographic makeup by region tell us about what's possible, probably possible, in terms of alternative energy? Then you, as investment concerns, can sit back and say, well, it's interesting, right? Obviously, the vast majority are fossil fuel dependent, right? Coal in parts of Asia and so on, and oil is obviously the biggest. And then it shows geographically where wind is a big opportunity that we're just scratching the surface on, right? And where policy doesn't look to be limiting progress in that way. And so now what's getting created and what will be shown at in General Assembly is what happens when you kind of come at this stuff in a holistic way. You start to get holistic pictures, and the holistic pictures that are informed by different disciplines allow us to make it as useful as possible and to sort of keep refining and evolving this way that we come together and walk together down this path.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I know we're a little bit past time, but I wanted to thank you, Jacqueline and Joanna, for being here with us today. This has been amazing and inspiring. And I know there's a lot of work ahead, but thanks to organizations like yours that are helping conscious companies, move forward and give them the tools that they need. We thank you for that. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. If you're new to conscious capitalism, we encourage you to visit our website, which was dropped in the chat, for more information about our movement and organization. If you are an executive currently implementing conscious practices in your business, we invite you to explore our growing support system of like-valued leaders by joining our Senior Leader Network. And I'll go ahead and drop that in the chat as well. We also have a lot of opportunities to connect and learn through our virtual gatherings each month. And you can find our upcoming events on our website as well. So once again, Jacqueline and Joanna, thank you so much. The work you're doing is amazing and impressive. And we look forward to hearing more about you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We hope we've given you a little bit of hope, something to look forward to. And
Absolutely.
Please.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Abby.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thanks for being here, everyone.